Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. Today I'm delighted to be joined by two very special guests. We've got Chris McElwain, aka Double Denim, and Sean Conley, all the way from Australia. We've got retro and we've got the modern day. That's what we do at Acsom. We cover all bases. Talking of retro, Jim Moore is representing Acsom today. What are you laughing at, Chris? Acsom today at
He's
Celtic
going to get you
Park.
back for that one, calling him retro, by the way.
I'm not sure he tunes into the pre-match. Sean Conley, that is a classic, mate. That's a retro classic. I don't think we can better it. You know, it's like a classic song. Just don't cover it. Leave it as it is.
I don't know what it was about the 90s, man. They just came out with so many bangers. Even the ones that people hated that I loved, like the one that looked like a packet of crisps with a yellow and green flash on it. I loved that one. Everyone hated it. But I don't know, man.
I want the wallpaper.
Some great
I want the wallpaper. You know that the cheese and onion strip that you're talking about. I want the wallpaper on vinyl. I'm pretty sure somebody out there can do that for me, because this is obviously my Celtic bedroom. That's what people say. I've got the bed sheets over there on the mattress. Etc. Is that a brandy you're drinking? That's a bit early for that, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's a very non-alcoholic brandy.
Should it not be champagne? There's lots to talk about. Obviously, we've got the starting 11, but there's a wee bit of discussion in and around this game coming into it. I'm going to come to you first, Sean, from afar, looking in. We've been talking about Trophy Day for a couple of months. It wasn't that we were jumping the gun. We were talking about the plans for Trophy Day, celebrating it, you know, looking maybe over the last few years at what's happened with fans congregating in a certain area of Glasgow. And here we are on the day, nothing planned. It's been a bit shambolic, and I feel sorry for all the Celtic fans who want to go up and enjoy themselves, because it's almost as if, A, they're putting blockades in front of you, but B, they're setting it up so that you actually get into a situation that might put you in a bad light.
Yeah, look, as you said, they've had months to organise this. When we got to Seville, they managed to organise all this fan zone stuff in 3 weeks' notice. I think when the Blue Hordes went into Manchester, they organised stuff. Fair enough that you know the electronics fell apart. You know that's what happens when you organise something at short notice, but it can be done. So yeah, like there's the only thing that's preventing it is a lack of a lack of goodwill, and the other thing about it as well is it's an opportunity to actually boost the economy. So there should be someone held to account for that. You're losing out on hundreds of thousands of pounds that you could be making here, that you could be generating, if you actually organise this in a manner that makes sense. Food vans, bars, even soft drinks, entertainment, whatever. Like, it's actually somewhat negligent that they don't do it, to be honest.
It is, and I've got to say, a few weeks ago when we were talking about this, Patrick McGill brought up one of the best points in and around it, in relation to the economy. The point you've just made there, Sean, and the fact that there was a report, and it was a few years ago, so I'm guessing it's gone up. There was a report that Celtic Football Club, Celtic Matches, brings £165 million to the Scottish economy in terms of spend outside Celtic Park. You were talking bars, restaurants, cafes, even shops that, when the European Games happen, people travel over to Glasgow and go shopping, all that kind of thing, hotels, flights. The economy gets a massive boost from Celtic. So you're spot on with that one. I was looking at a report as well, actually. David Lowe posted it on his LinkedIn page, talking about the death of the high street and how football stadiums now, because of the footfall, are almost getting used as the footprint around the football stadium is where businesses can boom. And it's absolutely been overlooked today. I don't want to settle on the negatives. There is a couple, there's that, and there's a tifo that we'll come to, and we'll focus on the football, Chris. But again, just punters on Acsom. I've been talking about this for a couple of months. So that's what leads me to believe that it's beyond incompetence. It's more deliberate.
It's hard to look at it any other way. Sean's referenced it, young Patrick's referenced it. We've spoken about it for the past couple of weeks. There are precedents out there that could be used. There are templates out there that can be used to do this. I referenced F1, going to Formula One events. They've got fan zones. They've got places where you can get food, merchandise, experiences, all that sort of thing. You could do something similar around Celtic Park, not to the same necessarily the same scale, but do something. Take some influence from that. I did the Kilt Walk a few weeks ago, and the organisation around that is tremendous. And it's all volunteers, and it's all people who are, there to make sure the day flows well. And you've got people out there giving water and you're giving food, but at the same time, you've got different checkpoints along the route where there's entertainment and there's stuff for, family, etc. Why can't the football club and the council or the governing bodies, whatever it may be, do the same thing around the stadium? We've got that big bit of land around the stadium. And we've even seen it used when we've had, trophy wins in the past. We see the players coming out and the manager coming out and gathering and addressing the fans. We see it with new signings, the whole bit. It's almost tailor-made for this sort of thing. And all it takes is a little bit of forethought and a little bit of pre-planning. Get the bandstand up, have the players or have representatives of the clubs out addressing the crowd, have a bit of music. We're affiliated with so many musicians. Have a bit of music, get the food, get the drink, make it a real positive, all-encompassing, cohesive experience for the fans. And believe me, you wouldn't get any trouble. I mean, okay, there's always going to be an idiot here or there, but everybody would be there for the same purpose, and they're in and around where they want to be. They're in and around paradise. Surely to goodness there'd be more appetite to go there than going to George Square, for example. I mean,
but it's not any different from the trouble that's already caused by guys drinking buckfast down the side street. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
And all you're doing is just getting under control, hiring security, right? Legitimizing it, generating tax revenue. What you have to remember, 1% of the population in Scotland is going to be in Celtic Park today, right? It's not a small number. It's not a minority. 1% of the population will be in that football stadium. Like, come down to Western Australia, right? When we have a big Aussie Rules game, 2% of the population of Western Australia is in that stadium. They organise, they have music, they have kids' play zones, they have injured players out doing pictures and autographs. They have the mascots, they have food trucks, literally all around the stadium, 360 food trucks, free public transport, shuttle trains, shuttle buses, getting everyone in and out within an hour. When you're at Celtic Park, the easiest way for me to get home from Celtic Park is to walk to the Glasgow Central. How does that make sense? Like,
Sean,
it could be done so much better.
Absolutely. And it's about consultation. It's about going and seeing how people do it elsewhere and how much better it can be. And then replicating that, implementing that at your own stadium. And obviously, we could have been using James McCarthy far better in the last 18 months if you get an injured player out to entertain the kids. Can he juggle, face painting, all that stuff? At least he'd get paid. He'd get paid, which is more important. Okay, today, obviously, there is lots of positives to talk about. We're not just focusing on the negative. This has been niggling for a while, and obviously there's a lot of fans going to go and celebrate anyway after the game. Acsom's got the cameras down there. They've got the drones flying about. So really looking forward to sharing all that content with you. Jim Orr is up at the stadium. He's going to be getting a few words after the game from some of the Celtic players and maybe even Brendan himself. And Celtic will be using, and I use the term because this is the official term, the Famine Memorial shirts. I know the circumstances around what happened at Angortamore, and people don't like the use of the word famine because it wasn't a famine. It was basically a situation that was generated and manufactured because of the potato blight, and I get that, but they're called Famine Memorial shirts, and we're going to be using that emblem on the hoops today. There'll be a very sought after set of hoops, and in homage to that, you've got your crucifix out and showing on your hoops there, Chris. I noticed that. I done a gig in Fife last night, the wilds of Fife. Very, very rarely do we do them. Chris Sutton and John Hartson. I walk into the room, Sean, this is true, by the way. Walk into the backstage wee room where they're chilling out with a glass of diet juice. And the first thing Chris Sutton says is Chris coming tonight? Talking about Double Den. I was like, dear me, the man gets everywhere. That's a true story. Is Chris coming? I was like, no, he's not. He's not coming in. All right, you're just going to have to deal. You're just going to have to deal with me. They're big buddies. They're big pals, sending WhatsApps and everything. Okay, let's get your thoughts. We're going to bring the team up in just a second. Jungle Lion reckons it's the cup final team. First thing I thought of when I saw it myself. We know Hatate is out. Brendan Rodgers was talking about him being back for pre-season. There are some strong rumours that he is one of two players that will leave Celtic in the summer. And, you know, you just think to yourself, maybe the injury will scupper that move. Colin Bean, full strength dress rehearsal team for the cup final. Here's hoping that we don't get any injuries. I know. And Brendan, because, I mean, St Mirren have a lot to play for today. Brendan McCarthy, hail, hail, boys, 4-1 to the champions. James Wilson, going back to Jim Orr's comments yesterday, if Sevco had won the league, they would have had a home game. So would the Orange walking have been cancelled today? No, they would have just rerouted it around Ibrox, probably, James. And Henrik McLarson, wonder if Brendan's taking the pressure off Forrest by not starting him. Let's hope we stay injury-free. This is a big thing. And the disappointment today, Chris, is that Rio doesn't start because he's out after that injury midweek. So disappointing for him and for us.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to see any of your players injured for any reason, but so close to the cup final. I mean, the one advantage is that Brendan's got is he's got players that can come in. Bernardo comes in today, and we've got options. But Rio's been in such good form recently. I mean, he's really been the driving force from an attacking sense. He's been the creator. He's been the innovator. He's been the guy who's really been driving the a lot of our good play forward. And we've really seen evidence of that over the past few matches. So it is a real shame, and the team will have to try and adapt to that loss. I don't know what whether the prognosis has been given yet, whether he is a doubt for the cup final or whether he's this is just precautionary to.
You're talking about Rio. You're talking about Rio.
Yeah.
He's definitely out. Brendan confirmed it yesterday.
Yeah. I never heard that. So he's out. So that's a real shame, and it highlights the risk that you take when you're playing these players so close to a big occasion. But it must be such a difficult challenge for the manager because he, as a manager, wants to win every match. The supporters expect us to go out and win every match. And therefore, you want to utilise your best players at every opportunity you can. I've seen he's been getting some criticism for bringing Rio on at that point in the match, and I get that. I think that's a fair observation. But the challenge itself should really never have happened. A lot of people have said it was a 50-50. 50-50s don't have that level of intensity, and I think there was a bit of red mist went over the opposition player, and unfortunately, one of our players has suffered the consequence. So it's a shame, but I think it's at the same time it's an opportunity now for another player to step up and show that he deserves a place in the cup final squad. Bernardo gets the nod for the start today. No issues with that. McCowan's showed, had a great performance in the previous game, so he must be in the frame potentially as well. And I think the only other shame is we don't have young Ricardo today, who we thought may have got a place on the bench, but there's no room for him today. But what we've seen of him, he looks very promising as well. So there's certainly opportunities there with a player like Rio out, but I would imagine most supporters would have wanted Rio to be fitting well, not just for this game, but for the cup final.
Yes, the McArdle situation is unusual because we're a midfielder down, but I think that, I had said yesterday how cool it would have been, how good it would have been if he was on the bench for the cup final. Sean, what's your thoughts on the Rio missing and Bernardo coming in?
Yeah, sorry, you're going to have to catch me up a little bit here because I have just moved house. As I said, I have internet problems, and what that meant is I was doing DIY until 3 minutes before I came on here. So I've literally not seen the team yet. So if you have it ready, that would be great. But yes, in terms of specifically Bernardo and Hatate switch around, that is somewhat going back to earlier in the season where Bernardo very much was in the mix. You had games where Engels was on the bench, you had games where Hatate was on the bench, and Bernardo was right in that rotation. I think around about December, we were just kind of making I think in the first 2 months, really, McCowan wasn't heavily involved. But then when you get to November, December, you see that I think by the turn of the year, McCowan's had 30 appearances. So it very much was those 5 players in rotation at that point. And once the niggles start picking up, McCowan was playing even more. I mean, McCowan started at Ibrox, I think. So, we do clearly need those 5. Maybe argument that we need 6 first choice midfielders. Mm-hmm. Maybe going into next season, we do need Callum McGregor to take more spells out. Keep him for Europe. So having Hatate out, there is a loss of depth, but I don't. Yeah, and we're losing a little bit of X factor. That's the thing we all say about Hatate, isn't it, right? He's got that, he can play that pass, it doesn't always come off and it's very frustrating sometimes, but he's got that little bit of invention in him that not all players have that we don't necessarily see from Bernardo. He's shown it in some games in the past, Bernardo, but it's mostly been against weaker opposition. He's not really shown it so much in these bigger games yet. So there's a good opportunity for him today and next week to to show that. What he's mostly been in these games is a tidy player. And I think that comes from the kind of coaching he's had around how to play in Europe. So I think when it does come to a big game, he does become more disciplined. He does become more efficient, which is almost the opposite of what you get from Hatate. And it's very interesting that it's, a year and a half ago, David Turnbull was preferred for his efficiency. And then fast forward to the European run this year, and Hatate is preferred for his dynamism. So I wonder if that's a change in Rodgers' thinking, or if it's a change in the way Hatate's played. But yeah, I think I've kind of covered your point and then went off a bit there. But it's interesting, and it's a good chance for Bernardo, who everyone really rated earlier in the season, and he kind of went out of the thinking when he got injured, and hopefully he's coming back into it.
Without a doubt. I've said a few times this season that Bernardo's the player that we've seen least of. That he's a guy that, but it's pointed out he's played a lot of games, but it's the minutes that I'm looking at, and the fact that in terms of his starts, he's only had 3 consecutive starts, no more than 3 consecutive starts. So to see him in the starting 11 today, I think is the right move. Even though McCowan was very good against Aberdeen, I thought he came onto a really good team, a good performance rather. But Bernardo, for me, I said this yesterday, Chris, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. I would actually play him as the number 6. I would, and I would have McGregor, playing that role on the left, and with Engels playing the same role on the right hand side, and hopefully linking the left back and left winger up as a trio on both sides of the park. Do you think that Brendan will do that, or do you think we'll stick to the tried and tested Callum being the connecting force between the defence and the midfield?
It's a good question. I would agree with you that I think Bernardo is definitely a capable player in that position, because his use of the ball is excellent. We've seen him when we have seen him on occasions. He's very, very good at retaining possession and then picking out a pass. I like the fact he can do both the simple passes and do some of those, slightly flashier passes as well. He's got a really good range on him. I think he reads the game very, very well. I also think he's a little bit more mobile and a little bit more physical than Callum to an extent. Whereas Callum, I think, has definitely got that little bit more flair, and certainly from an attacking standpoint. It's not to say that Bernardo's not an attacking player. I mean, we saw last season that he's got that ability to drive forward and have a shot. I mean, you have a shot even from range, whether it be a save that you then get a rebound opportunity, or you're lucky enough that the shot goes in. It can always result in something positive. So, but I think the good problem, if you like, that the manager has is that there is a degree of adaptability amongst all the midfielders. I would have no issues with Engel going back and playing a little bit deeper, because he's got that good passing range and he's got that ability, and he's starting to use his physicality more. McGregor, we know, can do it, but he can equally be comfortable, as you say, playing up more that sort of left side of the centre, and doing more kind of the box-to-box stuff. And we know from this season how good he is at getting goals from in and around the box. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see Bernardo play there, because he's a kind of big lad. He's bulked up quite a bit from the early part of the season, so he looks like he's got a bit of physicality. And I sometimes feel as though we lose some of those midfield battles because of a lack of physicality in that area. So I'd be quite keen to see him playing in the number 6 role.
Yeah, Liam Devine comes in to make a point. Round this back to yesterday, you seriously think Paulo's a better number 6 than Lennon Miller? That wasn't the point that I made. What the point I was making was that Lennon Miller is obviously going to be much sought after in the summer. He must be looking at the success of Billy Gilmour, Scott McTominay, and also Lewis Ferguson over in Italy. He must be looking at that, and there will be options, I'm sure, for him. My point was create our own Lennon Miller. And it was actually a conversation around Sean McArdle. We need to be a wee bit more patient and create our own player. Lennon Miller's brilliant. If he came to Celtic, where would he be in the pecking order, guys? Do you think he would start in today? Right, here you go. If Lennon Miller was at Celtic, would he start today? Would he get a game ahead of Bernardo? Chris says no. Sean? He's thinking about it. Carol Valderman says, right, Sean can't hear us, or can he?
I think he might. I can't say for sure, given the age difference, but I was...
You can now hear me interrupting.
Sorry, mate. I'm a bit laggy at the moment. I don't know if you can hear me.
It's all right. It's all right. You'll come back. You will come back to the equation. That's fine, mate. Don't worry about it. But yeah, that is a debate.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. There's a lag, unfortunately, but we'll come back to you on that. Liam, Lennon Miller's a brilliant player. He is the rising star of Scottish football. I've got no doubt about it. I do rate him. But I think there comes a point where what are we spending £2.5 to £3 million on a youth academy every season for?
Yeah.
If Motherwell can produce a better midfielder than us and develop them better than us, that was my point really. And I'm thinking, Sean McArdle, when did Lennon Miller break into the Motherwell team? I think he was 17, right? So you're looking at Sean and saying, right, let's produce our own version of that, rather than just, go plundering other academies who don't have anywhere near the budget that we've got, Chris. That was more the point I was trying to make yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, whether we bring through a player or you bring in a player like Lennon Miller, they both face the same challenge at this club. And that is that there's an expectation that you have to perform every week and you have to win every week, right? And when you don't, there's, scrutiny starts to go into players. With the greatest respect to Lennon Miller and Motherwell, they don't play under that pressure. And I really mean that without being disrespectful, but they don't play under the same pressure and the same conditions at Celtic. I think that's one of the key reasons why it's so difficult for us to bring young players through. I mean, there could be issues with ability. Maybe we're not picking the right talent. Maybe we're not nurturing the right way or developing them the right way. But getting into this team and staying in this team is a massive challenge because we're the number one team in the country. We are the champions. We are expected to win week on week. And for a young player at 17 to come through and be able to live up to that pressure and that expectation every single week, you need something a little bit special. You need something that separates you from the rest. Right now, I would have no doubts that Lennon Miller's got the capability to do that. I really like the boy. I think what I've seen of him, he looks excellent. But to say that he would just come in and walk into this team, no, it's a different challenge. It's an absolutely different challenge to what he's currently faced. Personally, I'd love to see him in the Hoops. I think he's a player with real potential. But as I say, performing and standing out in a Motherwell team is nowhere near as challenging as it is to stand out and perform week on week in a Celtic shirt.
Yep,
very difficult.
I mean, I've just checked. He actually made his debut having just turned 16, and he made his debut for Motherwell. Absolutely brilliant. There isn't a Celtic player that's making a debut at that age, unfortunately. And that this is my point here. It was all about not the player specifically, but the fact that why aren't we producing a player like him? And we're investing a lot of money into the youth academy, and it's not actually bearing much fruit. It really is not. If you were to look at the minutes played by academy graduates in the last 10 years, and the stat that I always keep promising that I'm going to check out, and I will get round to it, how many academy graduates have played 50 or more games for Celtic? And people say to me, oh, you're just picking 50 games at the air. No, really. There are data systems where it's like, what is a success? What is a successful graduate? And 50 games is a good yardstick. And it's the yardstick that was used by Tommy Burns. I've named the academy after Tommy. He knew a thing or two about youth development. And, how many of your guys have made the 50 appearances? Lennon Miller will get a big move this summer. He's going to leave for Park. I would not blame him if he looked over at McTominay and Gilmour and Ferguson over Nitley and thought, by the way, that's my destination. I would not be surprised if that happened. But yeah, McArdle, a wee bit disappointed he's not in the reckoning today. But Bernardo is a player that I've admired for a long time. I think he's not had as much game time as I would have expected this season. But as I say, I would like to see him sitting in the number 6. I don't expect it to happen though. In the defence then, back to full strength with Kasper Schmeichel in goals, of course. Right back, Alistair Johnston. There was a question asked last night, actually, of John Hartson and Chris Sutton, who is the natural successor to Callum McGregor. Obviously, you've got Kieran Tierney coming back, but the other name mentioned was Johnston. He's an absolute leader. It's good to see him back in that team. You need him for the big games. You need him for the Champions League games and the Cup finals. Chris, Alistair Johnston, he is a player that I think, he's a natural successor. In fact, Callum gave him the captain's armband the other night, didn't he?
He did, yeah. I think he is. He's a bit of a warrior on the park. Quite vocal, kind of plays and leads in the same manner. Real kind of hard grafts up and down that park and make things happen. Plays with absolutely no fear. He does look like a natural fit to be a future captain potentially, assuming we can keep him for that length of time. Definitely got some of the characteristics as a player that I like. I mean, he doesn't shy away from challenges. He'll put, doesn't mind, getting a little bit dirty at times as well. But I think it's even his manner, the way he speaks as a professional, the way he speaks, in interviews, talks about the club, talks about the fans, talks about what it means. I think he gets it at this club. I think he really gets what it means. I think he understands what it means to the fans. I think he is a player who I think recognises the expectations. And he's also a player who, if you look at how he's evolved over the past couple of years, not just with us, but actually in his international career as well, he's became a leader in that Canada team. And they really exceeded a lot of expectations. And he came away with some real individual accolades from that, from those performances. And that's not easy to do. So almost going back to my earlier point about what it takes to really stand out in a Celtic team, he's done that. And he's just taken his game to another level over the past couple of years. And as much as me and you both love Tony Ralston, and we think Tony Ralston could come in and absolutely do a job at right back, we're also under no illusion that when you bring in Alistair Johnson, there's a bit of a step up in quality. And again, I mean that with all respect and affection for Tony. But AJ, I think, is one of those players who you'd probably put in the upper echelons of our top performers.
I'm just looking at the fans singing "Walk On" in the sunshine, waiting for the team to come out, and obviously there was a lot of talk around the tifo. So the Green Brigade were banned from having their own tifo. The club are trying to do it themselves. There's a whole discussion around that. We might not labour it for today, but there is a discussion around it, and it's not just about an attack on what the Green Brigade and the ultra groups want to do. I think it's saying to the fans, we'll do what we want to do and you'll just go along with it. And that's a big issue as well. I'm seeing in the tunnel there, Greg Taylor again with his wee kid. There's a few of the kids coming onto the turf today talking about injuries. I see Big Gogic. He loves a kick. So we're going to have to be careful about him, obviously, as well. And, when we're also looking at Rod Stewart in the stand there, dressed as a schoolboy, like a member of AC/DC. He's like honestly, unbelievable, wearing the school blazer and the school tie and all that. He's morphing into Rick Sanchez, by the way, when you look at him coming through the car park with the goggles on and the hair and all. Great head of hair. What an installation at the age of 80. But it's one of the things where maybe you should go for the Dyson Maida. The players are walking through that tunnel, and I'm just going to remind everybody, I'm going to be walking through that tunnel on Monday, by the way.
Yes,
I am going to, yes. And you know who my manager is going to be, Chris? I found it last night.
You told me, yeah. You told me. Well, that's not all right. You could text me anyway, but...
Chris Sutton's going to be my manager. He told me last night I'm not getting a game. I'm going to be an unused sub. That's Chris for you. I'm happy with that. I'll just sit in the dugout and just soak it up.
The only way that's going to happen is if he brings back Emilio Ozzigiri to play at left back. It's the only way you're not getting on the park.
Unless the groundsman's available. He might get a game ahead of me. I'll be like the perennial Derek Riordan. I'll be sitting there as the 17th choice left back. But yes, it's great to see. It's absolutely tremendous in the sunshine, seeing a packed Celtic Park. The Green Brigade have got the flares and they've got the flags flying. They're not allowed a tifo, of course. So they brought in the flares. That is a defiant act, I would say. And it's a message to the board, Chris, I would suggest.
I would suggest so. I think overall it's just a failure of communication. And I think when you're talking about a professional body, which is the Celtic board and the structure around that, they're the ones that should be opening the dialogue. They're the ones that should be working with and proactively reaching out and working with the supporters. Because I see that as a responsibility of the Celtic board. So I think it's a failure. I think it's a catastrophic own goal on their part. I know we'll discuss it over the next few days, but that's my view.
Absolutely. Mark O'Hara loves a goal against Celtic, so we're going to have to keep a wee eye on him as well. And then Ayunga up top is, he's a guy that I think when you're looking at our centre halves, Scalesy is probably, and Carter Vickers, of course, I think are a lot stronger than the centre half pairing that we've seen during the week there. And of course, Trusty's on the bench. The two other big money signings that have been getting a lot of criticism this season start for Celtic. Another discussion point I had last night about that. It's incredible when you actually look at the figures of Ida and Engels that they're still being criticised. These guys have contributed to potentially a treble, progress in Europe, a memorable campaign. I don't know why we keep questioning the transfer fees around that. We will definitely talk about the TIFO issue during the week. Will there be a backlash after them letting off the flares? Probably. If the club comes out and makes a statement about the flares having not really been very vocal around the title party, then it's going to be ill-advised, I would suggest as well.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
the action's about to kick off. I'm buzzing. You're buzzing. We wish you were there. But for everybody who's not at the game, you can tune into a Celtic State of Mind at half-time for our thoughts. Go and enjoy the action, and we'll see you at half-time on a Celtic State of Mind.
Morning, champions.